the bottom line punchline here is in the workplace, I am treating you no different than anybody else.
That's exactly right.
I'm going to spend time at lunch with you just the same amount as I'd spend with somebody else. We're not going to have extra conversations. We're just not going to talk about our social time that we had outside of work at work.
This sounds like a stupid question.
Probably is, because, go ahead. Skilled managers equals high morale, which equals all that cool stuff that you cannot pay for and you can't punish for.
When you close off that feedback channel, you are not going to be able to hear the truth.
In the first microseconds, your brain can't tell the difference between physical danger and what we call social danger.
I'm pissed off at you.
Me, specifically?
Well, just because you're my boss and all.
Employees tend to get promoted until they reach their level of incompetence. Go forward and don't suck.
Welcome back to the Managing with Mind and Heart podcast. I'm Ethan Nash, and with me today, Mr.
Michael Nash. Nice to see you, Ethan.
Nice to see you as well. Nice to be with all you anonymous listeners out there. Excited for our episode today. I think this will be a helpful one for most of us. And hey, real quick, before we jump into that, I wanted to let you know about something important, which is that we have a leadership development workshop available for all of you to sign up for. It's a multi-part series, and it is really our cornerstone work. And it's called Managing with Mind and Heart. As you can see, the podcast was named after it. This is a really cool opportunity. At this point, thousands of leaders have gone through this workshop. And, from what we're hearing, what we're seeing, it's gone a long ways in helping them develop cultures, with high morale, high engagement, and just people walking away feeling more skilled, equipped to manage other people. And we really are focused on best practice management skills and behaviors. And so we're excited about that. Mike, just real quick, what are a few of the skills and tools leaders can expect to take away from this workshop series?
Yeah, it's quite a range. It's so many things. On the sort of, I hate to use the word, but I will, sort of technical management skill level of, leading a good meeting and coaching an employee and, some decision-making models to some really important EQ behaviors and skills for managers, like how to receive feedback non-defensively, because, of course, if I receive feedback defensively from an employee, then I'm unapproachable.
Yeah.
How to listen so people feel heard. Focus on morale. We focus on we have a section in there about behavior styles where we just kind of get a sense of the way we show up and understanding how and why others show up the way they do, which helps build trust and respect. And lots more.
Yeah. So you can go to our website, nashconsulting.com. You'll see us an area where you can sign up for that series. And for you, our dear listeners, we want to offer you 24% off this offering. 24% off, because giving you a whole quarter of the price off would be crazy.
Totally.
So 24% off. Yeah, go to our website and use the code at checkout. The code is Mind and Heart Pod. All spelled out, all one word, Mind and Heart Pod. And once again, you get 24% off, and we hope to see you there.
I really do hope you'll show up for that. People that are participants over the years have had a lot of fun in the sessions. It's sometimes they're 6 full days, sometimes they're 12 half days. We kind of mix and match. But
I mentioned it's online as well, so you can be in Seattle, Alabama, Egypt. It doesn't matter.
Yes, and other places too. Do you want to list some other places people could be?
Antarctica.
Okay, all right.
Bermuda.
Got it. So yeah, we're going to just take a short time today and talk about a dynamic that shows up in the workplace often, and it's that tricky, hard to navigate, sometimes awkward situation where, as a manager, you are friends with one of your employees, and by friends I mean not that you like them or you chat at work, that I hope that's true for all your employees, but it's that situation where you actually have what you would consider a friendship with this person. You're hanging out, on Saturdays. You're maybe going on a trip together, or seeing a movie, or doing some sportsing or something like that, right?
Some sports scene.
Yeah, sportsing with
Nice.
with the
Yeah.
ball and the hoops and the lines and
Yeah.
all that, whatever.
You
So,
know a lot about sports,
oh,
don't you? It sounds
sportsing.
like you do.
I just, yeah, sportsing. So yeah, it's tricky, and we have had a conversation here about being going from peer to manager, which is somewhat related, but not quite the same thing, right? So we've talked about that, but now we're talking about that that awkward, tricky area of maintaining or being a friend with somebody who you also supervise. So, Ethan, I want to ask you first, just sort of philosophically, um, should that be allowed? Is it okay? Is it okay to
Should
be
that
friends
be
with somebody that you supervise, or should you just
Yeah.
avoid that at all costs?
Yeah, well, I am going to give you the take of Robert Sutton. Robert Sutton is a smarty pants. He knows a lot. He's a professor of management science at Stanford University. He's also the author of actually a really good book called The No Asshole Rule.
Oh,
It's a
yes.
good book. But
Yes.
so here's what he says. He says that you can no longer have close personal relationships with your former peers. And if you do, you may appear to be playing favorites. Instead, you need to remove yourself from social interactions. When
Hmm.
team members go out drinking, for example, it may be better to stay behind. You don't need to become aloof and unavailable, but you may want to attend fewer social gatherings. And then he says, and I quote, if you're not feeling a little bit lonely and left out, then that can be a sign that you're not distancing yourself enough. So, he's a professor at Stanford. He knows a lot. He's
Okay.
basically saying it's probably not a good idea to be friends with people you manage.
Okay.
So,
Okay. And you concur? Where do you land, dude?
I actually disagree a bit with that. I disagree. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's your individual tolerance. If that feels right for you, and it just feels like it's too messy, and you feel like you want to distance yourself a bit, you can probably do that in a tactful way, and yada yada yada. Sure, but I also think it's kind of unrealistic. I mean, at one level, if you're going from peer to boss, and you were friends with them before, it's kind of all of a sudden are you just supposed to like not be friends with them anymore?
Yeah, thanks for being in my wedding, buddy, but I'm not your friend anymore
Yeah,
now.
you're just not friends anymore. So that doesn't seem super realistic. And even if you are not going from peer to boss, but you just come into this team or this organization, at the end of the day, you're gonna end up being friends with who you end up being friends with, right? And so
Hmm.
I think at some level it seems a bit unrealistic to say you can't be friends at all with the people you manage.
Hmm.
However, and I think what we're talking about today, I think there's a way to go about that so it doesn't, as Robert Sutton was saying, show up as if you're, playing favorites, or, your friendship is biasing you towards, giving somebody else more privileges and so on and so forth. So
Yeah, we are going to talk about how to navigate that, but let's just take a couple more minutes on what you just said, because I concur with you that I don't think we need to have a hard and fast rule that says you can't be friends with your employees. I think that's too strict. I don't think it's anyone else's business who I'm friends with. Yeah, I think, as we said, it's a little bit awkward to suddenly not be friends with somebody that you were friends. He does have a point, right? I mean, there's probably a middle ground, and we're not really going to spend time on this, but it is lonely at the top, right? There are certain things you can't talk about. There are certain, you can't air certain grievances. And you and I both have worked with managers who probably spend too much energy being liked, right? Trying to be friends, trying to get close to people in a way that can really diminish their effectiveness. So, we can tuck that
let me just
aside.
say, sorry to interrupt. I just say from my own lived experience and from coaching other leaders, I think that's the number one thing that gets in managers and leaders' way. The
Yes.
fear of other people's opinions and the fear of not being liked by other, which is a totally normal
Yep.
human reaction.
Yep.
And so it's a big thing in people's way. So I just
Yep.
wanted to note
Yep.
that.
Yeah. No, that's something we could talk about someday. That's really important. But yeah, let's say it's happening. You're friends with this person and you supervise them. You end up hanging out outside of work. Let's just talk about some ways to make sure that doesn't get in the way, that doesn't create a problem. And let's share some ideas. I just want to start with a really kind of a general concept, which is it sounds so obvious, but talk about it. Like you and that person need to just squarely face that dynamic. I'm your, you work here and I'm your supervisor and we're also friends in this context. And that could pose some issues. So can we make that an open conversation? Can we set some parameters? Can we talk about that? I think the problem would be that we don't talk about it and we ignore it. And then the
Right.
boundaries get crossed and fuzzy and bad things happen.
And it could get crossed and fuzzy in both ways. It could be like, hey, we're not on the same page of how our friendship should show up at work, and that causes damage to the rest of the people
Yep.
in the office or in the workplace. Or it could be you start doing these distancing type of things and your friend is not realizing why this is happening, and now you've kind of hurt the friendship. So it could go both ways.
Yep.
And so having a conversation just to set some boundaries, set some parameters, and what might be some of these boundaries or parameters that you should be setting?
There's several. I'll start with let's make sure that this friendship doesn't lead others in the organization to think that I'm showing favoritism. And there's a lot of things we can talk about this, right? Let's make sure that this friendship isn't, quote, showing up at work is a place to start. And this isn't the same thing as saying being sneaky or not telling the truth, but the other people who work in this office, for example, or in this department, they just don't need to hear us talking about the sportsing thing that we went to, right? or the fact that we hung out on Saturday and watched a movie. Like we just don't talk about that. And I'm not hiding it in the sense that I'm being sneaky or anything, but here's the thing. When I start hearing that, my boss and my coworker laughing at some inside joke that they both experienced on the weekend, it's really it's likely that I'm going to now fill in that blank with suspicion, with fear, with does this person now, is that why my boss made that decision? Oh, it's because they're friends. Is this person, so I might just make up stories as another coworker when it's in my face, right? That these two people have this friendship outside of work. So I get afraid. I get afraid of favoritism and et cetera. So I'd start with that we just don't advertise it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And let's just spend like a minute or two more on digging into that one. So what are some other ways, maybe obvious and not so obvious ways in which your friendship might be showing up at work? Like I like the inside joke example. What else?
Well, we got to remember that favoritism is the unequal distribution in some cases of money or privileges, etc. And time is one of those commodities. And so I've got this friend who's my person who's friends with me outside of work, and now we're at work, and there's that person using my open door policy like for an hour and a half every day, and we're just in there chatting, and no one else gets to do that, right? Or I go out to lunch with this person, but I'm not doing that with other people. We have to understand that at work, our time is a commodity. So when I'm spending extra time with this person, that actually is literally favoritism, right? I am favoring this person with my time.
Yeah. It's almost like the bottom line punchline here is, in the workplace, I am treating you no different than anybody else.
That's exactly right.
I'm going to spend time at lunch with you just the same amount that I'd spend with somebody else. We're not going to have extra conversations. Where we're just not going to, as like you said, talk about our social time that we had outside of work at work. Like it's just not going to show up in that way. Related question here. What if you have another employee either gently or not so gently kind of call you out on the fact that they know that you're friends with somebody else? Like, hey, Mike, I know you're friends with Hannah, and I'm concerned about that you have a
Mhm.
friend in the workplace. Right? No, I'm not seeing it show up in the workplace
Mhm.
necessarily, but I saw you out at the sporting event, the cricket match the other night. I guess I have my own opinions on this, but I'll let you give your opinions first. Do you want to be pretty transparent, even right up front, that you have a friendship with somebody else, but you've set some boundaries, or maybe let it go unspoken unless it comes up, and then when it does come up, how do you address that?
Yeah, I think it's awkward to bring it up. I don't necessarily wanna
Yeah.
advertise it, but I
Hey, everybody.
yeah, by the way
Me and Jane, we're best friends, just so
yeah,
you know. But you know what? It won't affect
right.
anybody. All right?
Exactly.
It's fine.
Yeah, that's weird, and I think that creates more problems than it solves. But on the other hand, yeah, if it's pointed out or someone mentions it, I mean, this sounds really obvious, I guess, but number 1, don't deny it, obviously. Don't
Right.
be defensive either. Don't I mean, this is where you get really tricky or I mean, you get real careful. It's not gonna be some sort of, "Yeah, so," or "none of your business" kind of vibe, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely, and let me lean into that with you. Do you have some concerns? I'd like to get some feedback. Are you seeing this friendship showing up in the workplace in a way that's maybe causing concern? I just would advise managers who get faced with that question to just lean into it and be open and humble. Nothing
Yeah.
to hide, but ask, right? Ask for feedback.
Yeah. Ask for feedback, and just to highlight what I think is one of my biggest pieces of advice here is let them know about the parameters that you've sat down and set,
That's
right?
good.
Like, just be like, yes, it's true. I'm not going to deny it. We're friends. We were either friends before, we developed a friendship. Just so you know, I sat down with Hana and we've agreed how this is not going to show up at the workplace. And I think that
Mhm.
can help relieve some people as well to just know there's been an open conversation about that.
I'm glad you added that. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, yeah. Talk about the parameters. That's a really good way of reassuring that you've already been proactive and you've been intentional. And
Hmm.
another one of those parameters you'll mention then, right, would be, um, and you'll follow would be there's no inside information being shared. There's no, and this is where you really have a boundary. Like this is where, like if I was friends with Fred over here and he doesn't work in this organization, I can share more with him. I can talk about, not confidential stuff, but I can talk about, stuff that's going on at work and
Right.
decisions I
If,
have to make. And
if Fred's not in the
yeah,
organization.
he's
Yeah,
not. He's outside the circle of the organization. So
of course. Yeah.
there's more freedom for me to kind of get some advice from him or share some frustration or whatever. I don't get to do that with this friend who actually also works here, right? And that I supervise. I don't get to let that person be my sounding board for things that have to do with work, and I don't get to share inside information or ask for input on a decision that I'm not asking others for input on, right? That's another form of favoritism, and it's crossing boundaries in a way that's going to create problems down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Which may mean, depending on how well you know yourself, that this friend at in the workplace may not want to be your drinking buddy if you're known for having a little bit of a loose lips, as they
That's a
say.
good point. That's a good point. Yep.
And so
Yep.
it's like, yeah, I'm probably not going to go out drinking with them because I don't want to share things about the workplace that I probably should have said later.
Yep.
Anyways,
I ran
just a
into a
side note.
manager I worked with recently said he has the one beer rule. Anytime he's out with someone who works at his place, he has the one beer rule for that very
Yeah,
reason.
yeah, and I think that's a smart rule. Just knowing the biochemical reaction of alcohol in the brain.
Yep.
Yeah, one beer rule sounds good. Okay, so far we're talking about have that discussion, have an honest conversation with the person you're friends with. You're setting some boundaries. Those boundaries are, of course, including just not showing favoritism in any form, and remembering that time is a commodity. So
Hmm.
not spending more time with your friend than anybody else. We discussed not discussing your social time. Not discussing work during your social time or your social times at work, right?
Right.
Having some good parameters there.
That's the firewall that you agree on with that person, and that's important. I just circle back. You don't just withhold while you're out there, out, at the sporting thing or whatever. The friends saying, "Hey, what's going on at work?" or "What's your thoughts?" and you're just kind of evading and not going there. No, just say it. Just say, "Look, let's be really clear. Let's
Hmm.
not have these conversations." So I would really recommend that kind of intentionality and state it.
And look, if you're not able to do that, right? If you're just not able to not talk about your work with your social friends and your social friends are your work friends, then yeah, that's when you might want to lean on Robert Sutton's advice and just say,
Hmm.
this is not going to work. Right.
Hmm.
Or you have to make a decision maybe if, hey, do I want to be manager of this group
Hmm.
and maybe sacrifice this friendship at some level? Or yeah, I think I can handle this and we can figure out a way. So you're going to have to make a decision for yourself on this, of course. And you just,
Yeah.
know thyself, as someone smart once
Some
said.
important person said. Yeah, Ethan, it reminds me too that there's another kind of a hitch here that, I mean, again, I'd be cautious, right? If you haven't developed the friendship yet, you may want to just consider, is it really the best thing to do? Because this actually happened to me. I was friends with somebody that I supervised, and turned out that after X amount of months, this person wasn't performing well.
Mm,
And I mean, talk about awkward. Like now, I'm really in a tight place. Like I can't not address this because that would be a form of favoritism and it would not be a good morale thing for the rest of the organization. But addressing it is just okay, now what, now I'm using my power differential in a way that I kind of need to, which I don't have a power differential outside the workplace, right? I'm his friend. But in the
yeah.
workplace, I am, and now I'm having to correct behavior, which becomes awkward. And man, I cannot tell you how many times I thought to myself, I wish I had not developed this friendship.
Yeah, gosh, that is a super important point and probably something that can be forgotten unless you have the foresight. It's like, and that might be another thing you just want to discuss when you're having that honest
Mm.
conversation, which is
Right.
like, hey, look, at the end of the day, I'm your friend. I'm happy to stay your friend, but as a manager, I am also focused on performance of each and every person that I manage. And so, I mean, once again, we're not going to talk about your performance outside of work. And B, just be let's be honest. Like let's just hypothetically think you're a great employee, I know it, but like if you weren't performing and we have to have that conversation
Mm.
about next steps and maybe it leads to worst case scenario where we have to let you go, like are you going to be okay with that? Are we going to be okay with that? And I maybe just have that conversation right there. Again, I think it's like being as blunt as possible in these cases and imagining the worst case scenario could be really helpful. Could be
That's
really
really good.
helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I hadn't thought of it that way. Leaning that much into it to have some of those hypotheticals. That's
I think you have to, right?
Yep,
Or
yep,
yeah,
yep,
yeah.
yep.
Good. Well, the other thing that I want to just mention here, I don't remember if you said this already yet, but outside of not sharing inside information, of course, it's just remembering that you're always wearing your company, quote unquote, company hat, even outside of work,
Mhm.
right? So, I've heard you say one time, you have to be, if you're going to go hang out on the weekend, you have to be somebody that they are going to still respect and look up to on Monday, right, as their manager. And so that's where it becomes even more tricky with having a friend that's your employee because you
Yeah.
can't take that company hat off. It just doesn't come off.
Yeah, and there's a couple hat analogies here, and we've already been talking about, like I have when I'm with you at work, I have my work hat on, and we're not talking about our friendship. When I'm with you outside of work, I have my friendship hat on. We're not talking about work. So there's two separate hats on one level, but the other version of the analogy, which you just alluded to, is I kind of always have the I'm representing this organization hat. That's the hat I'm always wearing. And so you're absolutely right. I need to be able to, out in public with you or out, doing something with you on the weekends. I'm not going to be bad mouthing the company, for example. That's
Mhm.
absolutely off limits. I'm just not going to be doing anything that I wouldn't want in the newspaper, right? It's just a higher bit. It's a higher standard because, like it or not, I am representing this organization.
Yeah. Good. 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 Well, I think these are some pretty solid parameters, suggestions to give people that are maybe interested in seeing if they can be friends with the people they work with or are going from peer to now manager. Um, Anything else you would add here? Any other suggestions and pieces of advice?
Nothing else. Maybe just to reiterate, lean into it, have conversations, be picky, choosy. Don't just willy nilly walk into these friendships if you're not already in them. Stop and
Yeah.
think about it. Yeah, yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, that last piece there, something to probably consider deeply. Like if you're not going from peer to boss, right? So you didn't already have that friendship. Yeah, you may not want to like purposely try to go develop. Like you might not want to try to initiate a whole bunch of friendships with those that you manage. Like if it happens organically, great, deal with that, have the right conversations, but maybe this is not the place to get your social connections made, right? Maybe join a different community outside of work, join an intramural team, right? Go to a networking group or something like that. Just something to consider.
What's the smarty pants guy? What was his name again?
Robert Sutton.
Okay, so he made one of the quotes in there. He said something about like when the group goes out, you might not want to join them, and I just want to say, I think there's a balance here, right? And I'm going to kind of circle back to what you were just saying. There's a balance in that I don't want to never go out with this group because that looks aloof. That looks like I'm not part of the team. I might want to choose to at times strategically not go out so they can be together and not have the boss. I mean, I think that's the balance. It does lead back to a little bit of loneliness at the top. I'm not going to be the same. I'm not going to have the same position in this group socially as I would have if I was just their peer. And that's sometimes hard for managers to get their head around. And so like you just said, let's be resourced, right? Let's make sure that this is not my only source for social life. Let's make sure that I actually have a rich community in my life so that I'm not depending on this to be my rich community.
That's great. It's great. I love that. And one thing you said reminds me of a conversation I had with one of my coaching clients. He's a CEO of a 30-person company or so, or pretty small, and he told me he has a 60-minute rule, which is when his colleagues, which are all the people that he technically manages, when they invite him out for a happy hour, for a walk, his rule is 60 minutes. He'll spend 60 minutes with them. He doesn't tell them this, but and then he leaves because, to your point, he wants to give the opportunity for people to make their social connections without having the boss there.
Right.
And I think that's a cool thing. So,
good.
Yeah. Well, that said, folks, we're going to wrap this one up. Just a reminder, if you're not already signed up for our Managing with Mind and Heart newsletter, I guess the reminder is to sign up. Just do it.
Do it.
You can sign up for that a couple ways. Go to our website. You should find an area there to sign up. Or you can text the number 6686 and text the word leading to 6686 66.
Right.
There it is. Thank you. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. Bye now.
Bye.
Hey, folks, wait. Don't go yet. Please, stay with me for 1 second here. I want to let you know about a couple cool little goodies that we have available for you. If you dig this podcast, you will probably also dig our Managing with Mind and Heart newsletter. This is a monthly newsletter where we share articles that we write about, how to thrive as a manager, how to lead teams that are characterized by high morale, engagement, psychological safety, care and respect, collaboration, and high performance. You can sign up for this newsletter by texting the word leading to the number 66866. Additionally, you can go to our website and sign up for the newsletter there. Our website is www.nashconsulting.com. And of course, if you're not already aware, we have our cornerstone program for leaders and managers, and it is called Managing with Mind and Heart. Go figure. This program is something that we often bring into organizations to work with all their leaders on helping them get aligned and singing off the same sheet of music with best practice management skills and behaviors. We've brought this to hundreds of organizations at this point with really good results. And if you are not able or inclined to bring our program in-house, twice a year, in the spring and in the fall, we offer this 6-day Managing with Mind and Heart leadership development program online for anybody that would like to sign up and join us. To learn more about this online course and to register, you can go to our website. Once again, that's nashconsulting.com. Or send us an email at contact@nashconsulting.com. All right, that's all. That's it. See you later. Bye.